In their latest attempt to show that they are both dangerous and a total farce, House Republicans are moving full speed ahead with their effort to impeach President Biden. With absolutely no evidence, they'll meet tomorrow. To discuss those plans, including a potential vote to formally authorize an impeachment inquiry, again, without direct evidence of any wrongdoing by the president. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy had refused to schedule a formal vote, but according to Republican leaders, this time the vote would be to reinforce subpoenas from the House Oversight Committee, which is the height of hypocrisy since two key members of that very committee, Jim Jordan and Scott Perry, defied subpoenas from the House January 6th committee. And a court filing unsealed briefly Wednesday by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals sheds new light on just how closely Congressman Scott Perry was involved in trying to mount a coup for Donald Trump, including texts between Perry and Justice Department lawyer Jeffrey Clark during the period when Trump was considering installing Clark as acting attorney general to push claims of non-existent voter fraud. On December 30, 2020, Perry texted Clark, quote, "POTUS seems very happy with your response. I read it just as you dictated." Clark replied, "I'm praying. This makes me quite nervous, and I wonder if I'm worthy or ready." Perry responded, "You are the man. I have confirmed it. God does what he does for a reason." Within days of those texts, Trump formally tried to install Clark as acting attorney general. His plot was thwarted by a threat of mass resignations by Justice Department officials if Clark was put in charge. Joining me now is Congressman Adam Schiff of California, who served on the House January 6th committee. Congressman, I just want to get you to react to the fact that some of your fellow members of Congress, duly elected members, were this active in this attempt to subvert the Justice Department, basically hijack it and steal the election for Trump.
Well, it just shows how little their oath of office really meant to them. Here they were conspiring to overturn the election. In the case of the text messages you read, you had a Representative Perry reaching out to Jeffrey Clark, someone completely unqualified to be Attorney General.
An environmental lawyer.
An environmental lawyer, not particularly well thought of at the department, but whose only real qualification was his willingness to do anything for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
His willingness to enlist others to try to help overturn the election. His basic unscrupulousness was his qualification. And nothing short of a threat of mass resignation stopped Trump from appointing him. But certainly Perry didn't stop. Perry was trying to push him, trying to elevate him, trying to put him in a position where he could use the power of the Justice Department to help overturn the election.
What do you make of the fact that, I mean, some of the key architects of the attempts to overthrow the election have been rewarded with more power? The current Speaker of the House was one of the main people, if not the main person, pushing the big lie, trying to get people to sign on to overthrow the election. Scott Perry, who sought a pardon, according to Cassidy Hutchinson. None of these people have paid a price. The people who've paid a price are people like Liz Cheney, who's out of power and out of office.
Well, sadly, that's exactly right. And indeed, when you look at the effort to replace McCarthy, Thomas Emmer, who was eminently qualified, was essentially disqualified because he wasn't a proponent of the big lie. And what we found out in that speakership fight was the prerequisite to being the leader of the Republican Party in Congress is you must be willing to lie for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You must be willing to undermine our democracy. If you're not qualified to run this conference. And so we did end up with a speaker who was very involved in the litigation to overturn the election. And we still have a Judiciary Committee chairman who, as you point out, ignored subpoenas of the January 6th committee and was also one of the architects in the House of trying to overturn the election. The only ones who did pay a political price were Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, those that lived up to their oath of office. And I think history will reflect very well on them. But it has been a bitter shock to me, and I think many others, that the Liz and Adams have been so few in number that the vast majority of Republicans cared far more about holding their office than they ever did about the oath of office or anything else.
I love that you presume that history will still be legal to tell. So I'm going to hold on to that hope. Speaking of Jim Jordan, that's who you were talking about, who is the committee chair. This is what CNN is reporting. This is out of Liz Cheney's new book, which I cannot wait to read. During a GOP conference call, Cheney writes that House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan was dismissive of the legal process for challenging the election results and didn't seem to think the rules mattered. The only thing that matters is winning, Jordan say, according to Cheney. So he doesn't even necessarily believe it.
I think that is perfectly consistent with what I've observed of Jim Jordan, which is it's always been my sense that for him, politics is just a game. It's like a sport. There's your team, there's our team. You lie, you cheat, you steal, you do whatever you can to win. And I'm convinced that if he got benched by the Republicans, he would offer to play for the Democrats. I don't think there's any real ideology there. I think it's self-promotion, kind of an enjoyment of the sport of it. But in terms of policy, in terms of devotion to country, I don't see any evidence of that.
Well, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Somebody who does seem to be a true believer, or he's a very good actor. This is one Clay Higgins, who is one of the weirdest members of the opposing caucus. He seems to believe that the FBI did January 6th. Here he is talking about what he thinks needs to happen to Jack Smith. Take a look.
So I just say that his days are numbered, and American patriots are not going to stand idly by, good sir, and allow our republic to dissolve. We are prepared to fight legally and peacefully and within the parameters of the Constitution with every ounce of our might and focus.
Well, at least he said legally and peacefully within the bounds of the Constitution. But what in the world is he talking about?
I don't know what he's talking about. But you do see this phenomenon. You see it with Trump. You see thinly veiled and not even thinly veiled threats. And then you see an effort to equivocate on the other side so that the listener can take whatever message they want from it. But without any mistaking, what he is saying is the justice system doesn't matter. Anyone who is prosecuting their party leader is therefore somehow illegitimate. The rule of law doesn't apply to Donald Trump. And that's where their base is. And that is a radical departure from where either party has ever been. In the past, I think people disavowed those that were involved in criminal activity and were reluctant to attack the justice system. They would say, let the justice system do its will. They would say, we'll follow the evidence wherever it leads. Not anymore. Not with this MAGA crowd.
We are out of time, but tomorrow is George Santos, going to get booted? He's going to get expelled?
I think he is. And it's not an easy issue in the sense of it's a change in precedent to go remove someone who hasn't been convicted. But the evidence is so substantial, the report's so bipartisan, the credit so disqualifying that removing him is the right thing to do.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. Scary times indeed.